Hey guys, it's Carrie with Happy Fish Tarot, and I'm really excited because I am going to be making an unboxing video today, which is something that I have never done before, but I just got 2 new decks in the mail, and I thought it would be fun to film my reaction so you guys can see my initial impressions of these decks. What I have here that I'm very excited about, first of all, I have the Japri tarot. I will preface this by saying I do not know how to actually pronounce this. I looked at several other videos trying to figure out, and everyone was kind of pronouncing it a little bit differently, so if anybody knows the proper way to say this, that would be great. You can let me know. And then I also have here Pixie's Astounding Lenormand. This will be actually the first Lenormand deck that I've ever owned, so that will be interesting. Both of these decks are from US Game Systems, and eventually I'm going to be doing a full review on both of these decks, but I thought it would be fun to just show you what I think right off the bat. I also have with me a glass of red wine, and I'm filming this in the evening, which I don't normally do. I normally film while the sun is out, so the lighting might not be the best, just bear with me. I'm going to begin by looking at the Japri tarot. This has been on my wish list for quite some time, and I'm really excited to check it out in person. And I just opened the box, and I'm so excited. So I'm about to have the really exciting moment where I start actually looking at the cards, but before I do that, I wanted to say that one of the reasons that I have never done an unboxing video before is it feels really personal to me, that moment when you take your cards out of the box for the first time and you're able to sit with your cards and look through them. I usually try to make that into a really personalized experience where I'm just alone with some tea and my cards and maybe a notebook to write things down. So it feels a little bit odd to be doing it in a video format, and it wasn't something I was ever planning to do, but when I got these particular decks, I just felt so excited to show people my reaction, and so hopefully it will still be a personal experience for me to connect with the cards while I share with you. I already kind of had the idea when I first saw this deck online that once it was mine, sort of the top priority would be to remove these white borders. I've done that to my Dreaming Way tarot deck, and it really makes a big difference of letting the images stand out and have a life of their own. So I'm already kind of feeling the pull that that might be one of my first moves with the Japri tarot as well. So I've just been sitting here for a moment in silence trying to take in the Fool, the first card. I'm already realizing that this will be a deck that I will need to do a lot of sitting with and a lot of observing the imagery, because it is by no means in line with the Rider-Waite depictions. It is its own beast and its own animal, and the art is kind of abstract and kind of surreal. So I'll really need to spend some time looking at it closely and thinking about what it brings up within me. But it's absolutely beautiful, and I really like it so far. I'm not going to show you every single card because, as I mentioned earlier, I will be doing a full review of this deck at some point. This is just my initial first impressions. So as I was going through the cards though, I did want to mention this is card number 4, which in the Japri tarot is titled War. This is traditionally the Emperor. This particular card is the reason that it took me a while to bring this deck into my life, even though I knew I wanted the deck. I was aware that the title of the Emperor had been changed, and it brought up something within me. I didn't necessarily have the best reaction initially to the title of this card being changed, but I have been thinking about it a little more already, and as I get used to this deck and sit with the imagery, I hopefully will have more thoughts on the title of this card. They're already beginning to kind of percolate in my head, but I'll hopefully share those with you more when I do a full review of the deck. The Lovers is also a slightly non-traditional title. It is simply called Love. This I did not expect. The Hanged Man is also had a title change in this deck. The Hanged Man is called the Drowned. I just got really excited when I looked at the moon for the first time because I realized it is actually an eyeball that looks like a moon, and I already think this card is incredible. The World is a good card to show my kind of general impression of the deck so far as I'm going through the majors. There's a lot going on in this deck. In some ways it reminds me of the qualities that I really like in the Wild Unknown, which was one of my favorite decks, but it's also quite entirely different. The Wild Unknown I think is really sparse and simple, and this deck has a lot to take in. So even when I looked at this particular card, I was kind of overwhelmed with how many colors and how much richness and depth and imagery is going on here. So this is definitely a deck I know I won't be able to start doing readings with right away. I'll be spending a lot of time working with it and getting to know it and considering what these images evoke within me. I took a quick glance just through the minors, and I noticed that the names of the suits have been changed in this deck. They are Winds, Tides, Fire, and Gardens. Okay, that's all I'm going to go through on the Japri tarot for now because I'm running out of room on the camera and I still want to get through Pixie's Astounding Lenormand. Much of the art in this deck has been directly taken from the Rider-Waite Tarot imagery, but some of it is original to the artist that created the deck, Edmund Zabrowski. So it is not actually a deck that was created by Pixie, it was more of a deck created as an homage to her artistic style. So the lid comes off, and here we have our adorable little deck. Very cute little booklet. I will be spending some time with this, especially as I am not extremely familiar or at all familiar with the Lenormand system. It's very different than tarot, I know, and one of the reasons that I've never worked with this system before is my general impression of it has been that it is a little more oriented towards unadulterated fortune telling. Whereas tarot, I know we often use it more for spiritual growth and personal development and these kinds of things. I might be completely wrong, but my impression of Lenormand has always been that it is a system that was designed specifically more for very much to the point, standard, cut and dry fortune telling. This deck is so small and tiny, and the first word that I can think of to describe it is that it is just simply adorable. The backing on the cardstock is quite similar to the backing on the cardstock of the Centennial Waite Smith deck, which is my favorite version of the Rider-Waite Tarot. This is really going to show how uninitiated I am into the system of Lenormand as I look through this deck. I'm not sure if the titles of the cards are sort of uniform throughout all Lenormand decks or if they tend to vary among the decks, but at any rate, this particular deck, as I'm looking at it, I noticed this first card is titled The Rider, and then next to the title there's a 9 and a heart. So I'm wondering if these correspond to playing cards somehow. I'm not really sure. If you're watching this and you know any good resources for Lenormand for beginners, you are welcome to leave a link for me and I might take a look at that because clearly I may actually need it. This is card number 3, the ship, and as I'm going through even just the first 3 cards, I'm having a bit of a nerding out moment, looking at the different images and thinking in my head where they have pulled those from out of the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. I believe that this ship is in the background on the 2 of Pentacles. Oh my goodness, this is really going to test my knowledge of the imagery in the tarot deck. I'll have to go back and make sure that I'm actually correct, but I think that's where this comes from. And this is kind of how this entire Lenormand deck is. It has these imagery that are pulled out from the tarot system, which is really cool. There's something really charming about the way that these Lenormand cards have these simple yet evocative titles. This is the Fox. The feeling I'm having looking through this deck sort of reminds me of the feeling I had when I first looked through a tarot deck, where I don't really have a base knowledge yet of the system of Lenormand, but as I'm looking through the cards, I just see the titles of the cards and they kind of bring up associations already within me. It'll be interesting as I work with this further to see how intuitive the Lenormand system actually is. Here's the gentleman and the lady looking very proper, wouldn't you say? The sun and the moon, two more titles that I recognize. Okay, this might be my favorite so far, the fish, for obvious reasons. There are only 36 cards in this deck, and once again I will show my ignorance by saying I'm not sure if that is the case with every Lenormand deck or if that is just this particular Lenormand deck. My first thoughts as I glanced through this, I could see myself using this deck similarly to how I would use an Oracle deck, where I maybe bring it in for additional clarification or just to kind of highlight a message. I could also see using it alongside tarot. I think that would be really interesting to do, but I would also like to have some respect for the actual Lenormand system, and I'd like to learn a little more about that as well as I get used to using this deck. That is all for now. That is my unboxing of the Japri Tarot and Pixie's Astounding Lenormand. I am so excited to work more closely with both of these decks. I haven't even looked through the Japri Tarot all the way. I just looked through the majors and kind of took a quick glance at the minors, so I'll be looking more in depth at those. If you are not following me on Instagram yet, you should be, because I'm sure I'll be posting a lot of images of these cards in the near future. And as I mentioned earlier, eventually I will be posting a full review of both of these decks. So thank you so much for watching. This was just kind of a fun thing for me to do to unwind and show you guys my excitement at my new decks. I will talk to you before too long. Bye.